Well, I guess Bernard is an android.
What the hell are you talking about?
It's the second time this year HBO has broken my heart with The Door.
Oh, the door!
What door?
Prior to episode 7, many fans had speculated that Bernard was an android, and they were proven right. Now that it is officially confirmed, many fans still believe that he is an android replicant of Westworld's co-creator, Arnold. And the evidence for this is a bit overwhelming. What implications does this have for Westworld moving forward? Well, at this point, I fully believe Bernard is an android replicant of Arnold. But before I get into Bernard's future and past, I want to recap the two-timeline theory. At this point, it's pretty much confirmed that multiple timelines are at play. Whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, who knows. But let's try and map this out. There is a 35-year gap between the multiple timelines. So let's start in year 1. Year 1, Arnold's death. Now, shortly before Arnold's death, Dolores and Arnold are having their secret conversations, with Arnold giving Dolores the task of finding the maze.
There's something I'd like you to try. It's a game. A secret. It's called The Maze.
5 years after Arnold's death, William and Logan arrive in Westworld. William is currently traveling with Dolores to the edge of the park, and Lawrence, Logan, and Clementine also appear in this timeline. And then we jump to year 35, the present-day timeline, which features the Man in Black, Dr. Ford, Teresa Cullen, Bernard, Ashley Stubbs, Elsie Hughes, Maeve, Clementine, Teddy, Lawrence, and Simon. I hate Simon. Now, Dolores is the connective tissue of Westworld, appearing in each separate timeline. She is the only character to do so far. Year 1, she is given the task to find the maze, but hasn't broken her loop just yet. Year 5, she finally breaks her loop and is currently looking for the maze with the help of William. And in year 35, she is retracing her steps from her time with William 30 years ago. Now let's get to some Arnold-Bernard evidence. This photograph in particular, as told by Ford to Bernard, is a picture of Ford and Arnold when they were young, in the early days of Westworld. Now, I'm not a photographer, like my boy Stu, but this photograph seems to violate the rules of thirds, with a person-sized gap occupying the right side of the frame. This could be the moment when Arnold gifted Ford the android replicants of his family, with both Arnold and Ford on both sides of the photograph, with Ford's robot dad in the middle. The man in the photograph is the same man who Bernard encounters when he discovers Ford's android family. When Bernard confronts Ford's father for the first time, he asks him if he is Arnold.
Are you Arnold?
Who's Arnold? And who the hell are you?
So we can assume Arnold is not Ford's father or his brother. But then the question is, if Arnold is actually in the photograph, why couldn't Bernard recognize him as himself? Well, according to Ford, he cannot recognize things that will hurt him because of his programming.
They cannot see the things that will hurt them. I've spared them that.
In episode 7, Bernard is completely unable to recognize himself in the blueprints that were used in his apparent creation. We couldn't see the third man in the photograph because that specific scene is shown from Bernard's perspective. But in episode 8, we can see Bernard in the blueprints because in that particular moment, we are viewing the blueprints from Teresa's perspective. Which is such a heartbreaking moment. I didn't want to believe it. Now to the voices. Since the beginning of the show, several hosts have claimed to hear the voice of Arnold in their programming.
They were talking to the same imaginary person. Someone named Arnold.
And in some cases, this voice is influencing their actions and causing them to break their specific loops.
Kill him.
And in other cases, it's causing them to have a seizure.
Would you like to know? Question.
The voice that Dolores hears is probably the voice of Bernard. Take a listen.
Have you been hearing voices? Has Arnold been speaking to you again?
No.
Wake up, Dolores. Do you remember? Do you remember? Kill him.
Where are you from?
Same as you. Don't you remember?
Remember. Find me.
Show me how.
We can also speculate that the meetings between Bernard and Dolores are happening in the past timeline, before Arnold's death and eventual replacement as an android. Up until now, many people believe those meetings were taking place in the present timeline, with Dolores retracing her steps from her time with William. And while I do still believe Dolores is actively retracing her steps in the current timeline, her meetings with Bernard were actually with Arnold. The meetings take place in a secret basement and are completely private. We never see anyone besides Dolores and Bernard in these meetings. Now, it's not official, but it appears that that same basement is shown in episode 7, when Bernard takes Teresa to show her the android replicants of Ford's family. Approximately 35 years before that very moment, Bernard was in that exact same basement trying to help Dolores unlock her real consciousness, giving her books, asking her questions, almost entirely giving up on the prospect until Dolores continues to show signs of instinct and improvisation. It is at this time that Bernard gives her the task of finding the maze. We know Arnold was the builder of Dolores, and in episode 7, along with Bernard's blueprints, Teresa finds the prototype Dolores blueprints. So we can assume that Dolores was built in that very same basement 35 years ago. When Bernard and Teresa first walk into the basement, Bernard notes that the hidden room is an old diagnostic facility that was used by Ford and his partner when the park was in beta. He notes that though the tech is newer, it's not as fast as the machines they use in their laboratories, and a host could be rendered in a couple of days. So 35 years ago, Bernard dies, Ford finds this secret facility where Bernard built Dolores, and now he is using it as a laboratory to surreptitiously recreate his late partner and modify his family replicas. A little subtle difference is Bernard's attire. When speaking to Dolores, Bernard is dressed in all black, and in contrast, android Bernard is usually shown wearing a suit and tie. So this could symbolize the stranglehold that Ford now has on Arnold as an android. Another little tidbit is when we see Dolores' severed head in the first episode and it's put on her shoulders, the hands that are holding her head are the same skin color as Bernard. Now this could just be any old butcher assembling the robot after she's already been built, but I thought I would just put it out there.
I'm not one. I can't be. My wife. My son. They're real. I was a father. My poor boy.
Now, in episode 1, Ford mentions that all diseases have been cured, which should have been our first red flag concerning Bernard's apparent humanity. If all diseases have been cured, then how come they couldn't save his son? In episode 3, we see Bernard discussing the pain of losing his son with his former wife via video chat. Now, I don't think this conversation was a hallucination, a dream, or a planted memory. I think that this conversation actually happened in the past timeline. Perhaps Bernard's son died prior to all of the diseases being cured, somewhere around the same time that Westworld was created. This is the personal loss that Ford tells Bernard about, which triggered Arnold's obsession with finding real consciousness.
His personal life was marked by tragedy. He put all his hopes into his work. His search for consciousness consumed him totally.
In episode 7, we see Bernard bedside in a hospital room, reading Alice in Wonderland to his dying son. Again, I don't think this was an implanted memory. This is an actual scene from when his son died. Remember, Bernard also gives the Alice in Wonderland book to Dolores, so this could be the moment that inspired him giving that book to Dolores. In his conversation with his wife, Bernard says the pain of his dying son is the only thing that he has left of him. And in episode 3, when Bernard offers Dolores the ability to remove the pain of her family being murdered, Dolores says,
Why would I want that? The pain, their loss. It's all I have left of them.
In a separate conversation between Bernard and Dolores, Bernard tells her that evolution forged the entirety of sentient life on this planet using only one tool, the mistake. Now listen to this quote by Dr. Robert Ford.
Evolution forged the entirety of sentient life on this planet using only one tool, the mistake.
Ford is actually repeating Bernard's quote back to Bernard as an android. Imagine that. Ford even pauses in the middle of the quote like it's a moment of reflection, like he's remembering the moment when Arnold said this to him in one of their conversations. Now, as I see it, there are three possible ways that Arnold could have died. Number one, the one that seems most unlikely, suicide. The pressure and the weight of Westworld made him crack, and he ends his life. We see several moments in the show where Bernard has serious doubt about his pursuit of consciousness with Dolores, so maybe he decided to just end it all, including his life. But ambitious men don't kill themselves, do they? And Arnold was clearly a man of great ambition. Number two, Ford murdered Arnold. It's easy to see why Ford did not share his partner's opinion on consciousness. I mean, if you make the robots conscious, they're going to realize they've been used as sex robots and murder dummies for the past 3 decades. And then we're going to have to fight off a revolution, which would make a very cool series finale. Depending on your personal perspective, the robots are real or they're not. Arnold believed that they were, and Ford...
The hosts are not real.
We already know that Ford has no reservations about killing someone he perceives to be a threat to his rule over Westworld. I mean, who knows how many people this guy has killed.
I've seen many of you come and go over the years.
Throughout the series, he's shown to be a bit jealous of Arnold.
Tell me, Dolores, do you remember the man I used to be?
I'm sorry. I'm forgetful sometimes.
Hardly your fault. But I'm sure you remember him. Arnold. Well, if you're looking for the moral of the story, quite simply ask.
I'd need a shovel. The man I'd be asking died 35 years ago. Almost took this place with him. Almost, but...
Oh my god, look at him. He's so pissed right now. Oh my god. This is the moment when you realize that you're Garfunkel and your partner was Simon. Is Ford crazy enough to kill his friend and then recreate him as an android with a diluted intellect? Yeah, no, I'd say so. And number three, murdered by Dolores or another android. His search for consciousness consuming him totally, in that he succeeded in making an android conscious and that android turned around and fucking murdered him. God creates man, then man turns around and destroys God. We know Ford created Bernard, so it's possible that after seeing what happened to his friend, he became adamantly opposed to the idea of real consciousness and wanted to keep his friend's spirit alive in the form of an android. Take a look at this interaction between Ford and Dolores.
Are we very old friends?
No. I wouldn't say friends, Dolores. I wouldn't say that at all.
So maybe Ford has a inner hatred towards Dolores because Arnold succeeded in making her conscious, and then she turns around and kills him, forcing Ford to wipe her memory and keep a close eye on her. But Dolores also says this to Ford.
What was the last thing he said to you?
He told me I was going to help him.
Help him do what?
To destroy this place.
There is a reason that Dr. Ford is keeping her alive or active in the park, and the animosity he has towards her could be because he blames her for Arnold's death. You would think that Dr. Ford would have her deactivated if she actually killed Arnold. Maybe he's so arrogant and stubborn that he feels he can just wipe her memory and she'll never become a threat to anybody again. One way or another, Dolores played a role directly or indirectly in Arnold's death, and if she becomes fully conscious, we might actually know what happened to Arnold.
I'm sorry for bothering you, but there's no one else left who was there. No one who understands as we understand.
Now, I wanted to do a little preview for episode 8, so I'm going to take a look at the promo that HBO released, break down some of the moments, and anticipate what is to come in the next episode. Stats, can you roll the tape? So this promo opens with Bernard presumably looking at Teresa's dead body. We can see his eyes are teary-eyed, and he's probably remembering all the intimacy and the relationship that he shared with Teresa.
Why did you make me kill her?
One man's life or death, there were but a small price to pay for the dominion I should acquire.
And then we go to Dr. Ford, who actually quotes Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. One man's life or death, but a small price to pay for the dominion in which I acquire. I think the quote from Mary Shelley was the knowledge that I acquire. We've seen Ford. He starts out as this kind of non-threatening, benevolent character who's kind of offbeat. He's the wacky creator of Westworld. I don't think this is a show of heroes and villains. I think every character is morally gray. You can't look at Ford as a protagonist. I look at him as a spoiled brat who really just became obsessed with telling stories in his virtual reality GTA.
Your insane little kingdom is over. You've been playing God for long enough.
I simply wanted to tell my stories. It was you people who wanted to play God with your little undertaking.
Just in that particular scene right there, it's almost like Teresa is scolding a child. Like, you are done playing with your toys, you sick, demented, twisted, God-complexed freak. Now go to your room. And now he sees Delos trying to take control of his technology. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We also see Ford standing over the dead body of Teresa with Charlotte and Ashley Stubbs. We haven't seen Ashley for a couple of episodes. A lot of people speculated because they were in that basement with one of the machines that creates Host, that he was just going to create a replica of Teresa in order to have her spy on the board, be a covert operative for Ford. But it looks like he's just, nope, we're done with Teresa. I'm going to show you her dead body and then put this cloth over her. Somehow I think he's going to be able to spin this, get Ashley on his side, put Charlotte on her heels. And as for Bernard, you can see that he's visibly upset in this video. Now, I mean, I just spent 13 minutes talking about how I do believe he is the clone or the replicant of Arnold. Ford is playing a dangerous game here. If this guy was uploaded with the memories of Arnold, he can be remembering who he is and then take on the role of trying to destroy Westworld like Arnold was so many years ago. Remember, in episode 6, the little boy tells Ford that Arnold told him to kill the dog because if it was dead, it couldn't hurt anybody. So if this guy starts to have a self-realization that he is Ford's hitman, that he is killing people that he cares about, so I think it is a dangerous game that he's playing. We saw in episode 6 that the bicameral control system that can operate the older generation hosts was being accessed by Arnold. So maybe Bernard has already been remembering who he truly is and is trying to access these older hosts to start his revolution under Ford's nose. Okay, so now we see Maeve with Tweedledee and Tweedledum over here. Felix and Sylvester, the two most uninteresting characters on the show. The Maeve storyline, it does kind of feel out of place. With a show like this, you want one of the hosts to actually break out of the park and see what would happen. It's kind of like the ending in Ex Machina, you know, what the fuck would they actually do in the real world? But they've shown Dr. Ford as a character who has absolute power and control of the park where no detail goes unnoticed. But somehow this woman is just gallivanting throughout the park, taking tours with Radiohead playing in the background. And it does feel out of place. I think she could be in for a rude awakening where Ford does know what's happening and he's just like, listen, let her do what she wants. She's not getting out of the park. I have to deal with the ghost of Arnold that's supposedly haunting Westworld, and also the board, Delos, that wants to steal Westworld's IP. It looks like in this particular episode that she wants to change the narrative with Hector and the Snake Lady, where the Snake Lady breaks out Hector from the prison, they rob the brothel, they take the safe, but it looks like she's going to try and change this narrative and then break out during all the chaos.
I'm getting out.
Okay, now we see Dolores and William picking up from where they left off in the last episode. Now, what's interesting about this is that Dolores keeps having these flashbacks of the White Church. We saw at the end of episode 1 with Dr. Ford's narrative, the cross that appears on the top of the White Church. So I do think that these two things are somehow connected. Dolores keeps seeing the White Church, the graveyard, and then she sees this massacre happening in the streets. Now, this flashback is also happening with Teddy. And if you slow up the video right here where this woman gets shot, the man behind her does look like it could be Teddy with the shotgun during those flashbacks that Teddy has. Then we see the Man in Black and Teddy, and the Man in Black has his arms and he's dragging what appears to be the Minotaur. In my previous Westworld video, I discussed how I thought Wyatt was in fact the Minotaur, the man dressed as the Minotaur. He's impenetrable to bullets, he's invulnerable, his men cannot be hurt, they cannot be killed, and in this particular moment, Teddy is experiencing a flashback to when the Man in Black dragged Dolores to the barn to rape her. Is Teddy actually experiencing his own self-realization here? Having an existential crisis? Is he going to turn on the Man in Black for remembering what he did to his girlfriend, to his lover? So that's going to be really interesting to see, because these guys have been the dynamic duo. I don't want to see a breakup. And then you see the Man in Black, who it looks like he is being picked up by the Minotaur and then thrown on the ground. So this is the first time that we've ever seen the Man in Black visibly hurt by one of the hosts. A lot of the promos, sometimes they've been showing stuff that isn't going to happen in the next week. They kind of skip weeks. So if this is happening next week, oh my God. You know, the Man in Black versus the Minotaur. This is like fucking Superman versus the Hulk. And then we see Maeve running away, possibly in the commotion, the narrative that she had Sylvester and Felix change so that she can try and make her escape. And then we have Dolores with a gun to her head. Now, Dolores is obviously on the track to real consciousness. Is there any greater representation of real consciousness than suicidal thoughts? I mean, getting to the point where you don't know if you want to continue with your life, with your journey of self-discovery. So that's interesting. It looks like she is staring at herself. Another one of those moments like she had with William during the orgy, where she kind of walks to the back of the room and she sees a woman that turns into herself. It was almost a moment of her own conscious replacing Arnold's voice. Then we see Maeve pick up the knife and go to attack what appears to be Sylvester. It could be Ashley Stubbs, but I'm going to bet my money on Sylvester. This story does bother me because their encounters are kind of annoying. What possibly could this encounter be? Oh, Felix, I told you to get my passport so I can fly to London. Oh, sorry, Maeve, I told you I don't know how to do fake IDs. Where is this story going? It's filled with plot holes because it really doesn't make sense that Ford would not know that this is going on in his park. This subplot in particular, it's going to be tough for them to stick the landing. And then we have the Man in Black who says the rules of this game, they hold you back. And he says that he knows how to change the rules to the game. And he says this game cuts deep. The Man in Black is determined to find the maze, but as we progress with the show, I continue to believe that the maze is not a physical place. The whole idea of the maze is to unlock consciousness in the host. But you see Maeve is completely self-aware. She knows that she's a host. She is trying to escape Westworld. What is the maze? Is it like a fountain where you dip your head and all of a sudden you're conscious? Can it be a real thing? Is it like a little chip? A programming chip that you stick in the host's head? A lot of people think the Man in Black is on a quest for immortality. I could see that. The hardcore gamer spends his whole life playing the game, unraveling all the levels, and wants to find the deeper level, which is immortality. But once again, Lawrence's daughter told him, the maze ain't for you, bro. So, it's for the hosts. But thanks for watching. If you like this video, it's like 5:30 in the morning, bro. I'm going to sleep.